Hey everybody, what's going on? It's your man Russ Mitchell, Homesick Buckeye, here with another installment of my video series, Keto Conversations, where we bring you folks from all walks of life who've embraced a ketogenic lifestyle and have seen results, and we want to talk about it with them. So, this gentleman, he's no stranger. Everybody knows him. Some people call him Doctor. Some people call him Tony. I'm one of the few privileged people on the planet that get to call him my friend,
Oh,
Dr. Tony Hampton. What's
oh
going on,
man.
brother?
Man, you got my heart all warm and fuzzy, man. Don't be doing that in front of the public like that, but I appreciate you. And again, I love you. When I met you, man, you had me laughing so much. I really appreciate that. So thank you for
Hey
putting a
man,
smile
that's
on my
look.
face.
Hey, I'm a lifelong clown, man. That's what I do, and yeah, man. You've been just outstanding with me, man, and helping me with my channel. And every I think every day, just about somebody's like, Dr. Hampton told me to come over here. Dr.
Man,
Hampton told me to come over here. So I appreciate that, and I'm just thankful that you think there's anything of value that I've got going on my goofy channel, man, to help people. So
I
uh,
appreciate you. And I will say this, man. Listen, man, people taking life too serious. And even before we started recording, I was telling you that it was a shooting somewhere, at a
yeah,
game in Chicago. Life ain't, we got to take it down a notch, man. And what I love
yeah,
about what you're trying to do is take it down a notch. We're still going to try to reach our goals. Let's not put labels on people. Let's just have a good time
yeah.
encouraging people and coaching people how to make the best decisions for their health. So I'm all in, man. I love what you're bringing to the table, and that's why I
Well,
support
thank
your
you,
channel.
brother. Thank you, and that's my first priority on my channel is to make people laugh and smile.
Yeah,
That's all I wanted to do when I started my channel. I'm not comfortable talking about myself really that much. I don't think I'll ever get used to it, and uh, I don't mind telling you, I don't think I've done a lot or done enough to like inspire people. There's so many people out here that have lost so much more weight and got off all the medications and all that stuff. I don't really have any of that.
hmm
But like I said, it's if people want to hear it, I'll certainly talk about it. And again, I thank you for all the kind things that
I'll,
you
I'll
said.
say this. I'll say
That
this,
you've done.
Russ. You're giving people permission to, again, going back to the labels. It's okay not to follow some rigid diet that someone thinks is going to heal you. It's okay to know struggle is going to be part of it. It's okay to not, do the diet when you're having entertainment with the family and you want to do your own thing with the family. It's okay. So you're giving people permission because a lot of this is a mental thing, and if we
Yeah.
can get our mental down, that's going to help us through those struggles. So I think that's what you bring to the table. You
Well,
bring to
I just share what I'm doing. I try to shine the light on folks like you. Really, I don't want anybody, to take advice from me or look to me as any kind of guide or role model. Like I said, I still look like the before and after picture. I say it all the time. So, you know, I just share with people what I'm doing, the success that I'm having, and again, try to give them something to laugh and smile about because
that's
I
fair.
found in my travels and my evangelism that most people that have come to this lifestyle and this way of living come from places of pain
Yeah,
and suffering and sickness.
that's right.
Um, and so, for me, man, if I could just help people smile and laugh a little bit, that's, the part of it. And also tell you what I'm doing and the benefits that I'm having and maybe, that can just lift people.
Yeah,
Um, and so, yeah, that's my lane. Yeah. Let the doctors and the scientists and the nutritionists and the coaches and let those folks tell you what to do and push you and that kind of stuff. Me, come on over here, get some of these jokes.
that's
Okay,
right.
that's
That's right.
what you go over, get
In
some of
fact,
these
when I share your channel with patients, I like the most recent one you did where you were kind of doing the pastor role and you were
jokes.
singing. So I'll go to that and say, if you want some craziness, check this out. And they usually enjoy that. So that's my hook. And then I
Yeah,
say, there's other stuff he's going to share. Hear his
yeah,
story. Let's watch this guy do his thing. So it's working,
yeah.
man.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that, Don. But we're here to talk about you, man. People know me. They see me acting a fool on there. They know where to find that. But I want to talk about you, man. We start at the beginning, brother. Tell me where you were born and what your childhood was like.
Yeah, that's a great question, man. I'm definitely a product of the great city of Chicago,
Okay.
born and raised on the west side. Now, the west side of the city is not considered the best side, but it's good people, and a little times the reputation is a little, worse than the reality. It's actually some great people, and when you're growing up in a community with limited resources as a kid, you don't know. You don't know. You just
Yeah.
living, and you don't
Yeah.
so I did grow up with a single mom. She always had a factory job. She worked for Nestle's forever and would get up early in the morning and make sure we were straight because we were little kids, have the keychains on our neck and all the things to make sure
Right.
we're okay. And back then you could walk home, walk to school
Yeah.
and it was safe. You didn't have to think about only thing I worried about when I was a kid walking to school was that, sometimes there would be a stray dog or two, but you didn't have to worry about stray folk, you know, the stray
Yeah, yeah.
people.
Carry a
So
hot dog
so
with you. Carry a hot dog with you, boy. You neutralize that threat. That's how you
that's
got.
a good hey, yeah, I wish I had have known that. I would've the hot dog trick, you know? Have a brother, I'm 55, he's about 50, 2 years older than me. So we grew up in that environment, and, interesting enough, man, I grew up, right across the street from a tennis court, and that actually was a big factor in my life because, I was really across the street from the next suburb where I live now called Oak Park, Illinois, just west of the city of Chicago. And tennis kind of forced me to not just be in front of my house where the tennis court was, but it kind of forced me into Oak Park because you had a lot of tennis players in that part of the town. If you go further east towards downtown, that's when you get into the basketball and kind of the hood, and that kind of really kept me in a different environment. And when you see people who maybe have a little bit more than you, have a slightly different mentality, it really inspires you. And but the key is you got to get around them because a lot of times you lift them too high, and once you get around them, that you realize they're just people, man.
Yeah.
And they have things because they've learned to work hard, and maybe they were gifted with a few blessings along the way. But man, it was just great growing up there. I was also able to have some experiences that helped me by going to a school called Lane Tech High School, which was more close to completely different neighborhood. It took me 45 minutes or so on the bus to get there, but it was nice because it was one of the better schools and it was really close to Wrigley Park where the Cubs play. And you had like a Led Zeppelin thing going on over there, where I was
Yeah.
doing more Cool Mo D and the
Right,
Fat Boys back in
right,
the
right,
day.
right.
You remember the Fat Boys and all of that?
Oh, yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah,
I
yeah,
had both worlds, and it taught me how to be comfortable in both worlds. So,
yeah,
I could listen
yeah,
to Journey and be
yeah,
comfortable and appreciate
yeah,
not just be comfortable with people, but even the music, man. If you don't
yeah.
think Journey can sing, something wrong with you.
Hey, don't stop
You
believing,
see,
baby. Don't
that's what
stop
I'm talking
believing.
about,
Yeah, live
So, if
it,
you
live
don't know that, then you don't
it. The ticket sometimes ain't going anywhere. Hey, listen,
Man, you
yeah,
know what I'm talking about. And
yeah.
also on the
Joe
other
Perry.
end, if you don't the lyrical prowess of some of those rappers back in the day. So you get a chance to appreciate
Yeah,
music, you get a chance to appreciate people. So when you get around people, man, you just are comfortable. Like
yeah,
so that's kind of what happened. Elementary school, mostly African American, high school, mostly my white brothers and sisters. And then once I left high school, I went to Xavier in New Orleans, which is a historically black school. And what's special about Xavier is it is the number one school in the country for getting African American students into medical school, and my wife's a pharmacist, and they have their own pharmacy too. Number one school for both of those professions. So if you literally can walk into a pharmacy and see somebody of color, and it's about a 25% chance they went to Xavier,
yeah.
because there's
You
not
getting, you
there's
getting, you're getting a little ahead of me getting to college there. But in growing up as a child and
yeah.
before high school age,
Yeah.
what was now you didn't mention your father. I don't think I didn't hear.
Definitely was a single, mom
Okay,
situation.
gotcha.
Dad is still alive,
Uh-huh.
and you know how it is,
Yeah,
not really a relationship, but,
gotcha.
it's just a typical story for a
Yeah,
lot of kids of color, man. It's just And maybe one day that'll change, but that is
Yeah,
something the
hope
relationship
so.
is not really what it should be. Do have a half brother, his name is Charles, that, I reach out to, periodically and interact with, so but,
Yeah,
nothing but love for everybody, man. I'm a warm-blooded,
yeah,
warm-spirited person, and,
yeah.
just
I
hadn't
love
you
that.
know how life happens, time passes, and
Yes.
you just really hadn't made those reconnections, yeah.
I totally understand. Now, as a child, did you what was your diet like? Like, did your mom was she into health and that type of stuff, or was it just like standard American diet? What was your
It
diet
was
like
it
that?
was standard American diet, but what was better about it, yeah, I think, is that mom did cook, you know? I mean,
Mm,
you would there was, the Vienna's type restaurants in the neighborhood, so on a Friday, and maybe even on a Saturday, you may find yourself grabbing some, the burgers and the hot dogs and
yeah,
things of that nature. Weren't really doing the McDonald's kinda stuff. But growing up, man, mom pretty much cooked. When we would wake up in the morning, breakfast would be done. She always cooked. We would have, a meal, and then the next day would be leftovers. So I think we did better in that sense.
yeah,
Was there knowledge about the harm that comes from the food that we know now? Maybe too much starch, too many grains. I don't think at
yeah,
the time that was even, in fact, not
yeah.
back then, but even now. I mean, people don't even know
Yeah,
that
sure,
now.
that's what I mean, 'cause we're about the same age, I'm 53,
Yeah,
and,
yeah,
we didn't eat out so much just for, I think, financial reasons and that sort of thing was a
that's right.
part of it because we came
Yeah,
up,
huge part of it.
that way, too. But, my dad was into health, he juiced and all that kinda stuff. I grew up
Mm,
Seventh-day Adventist, so, they
right.
had the health message as part of the church and stuff like that, so I always like to talk to people and find their foundation, health wise and diet wise
Mhm.
when they were kids, because that's when your habits are formed, the foods you fall in love with, the foods that you like to eat. Just at least in my life, I found it starts there. So, where did you have Southern influence in that? Were you people from
Yeah,
the South like many of us are? So
and it
you,
and it hasn't gone away. My wife's
yeah,
from
yeah, they rattled them
Mississippi, but,
pans in there, brother. They rattled
it's
them pans.
yeah, it's all good, and, my mom, is from Arkansas, so,
Mm,
and we're talking about a mom who had, I think, around 14. I think it was 14 or 15 of them. Most and many of them are still around. In fact, we just talked about one aunt who is in the Nebraska area who is, she just, like, she getting up there, man. She is, like, really doing well. So we have some longevity in the family, and, and because of the Southern roots, I think a lot of the foundational foods, the greens and things like
yeah,
that, we ate a
yeah,
ton of that stuff. But
yeah.
but just the culture of, celebratory things that we did as a family around food, we did all of that stuff. Mom, and it's so funny, man, because it's really your palate. Your palate is a reflection of your life experiences, right? So if my wife's mom, before she passed, made dressing, when I used to eat that, it would not taste as good as my mom's dressings. It
Right.
just wouldn't. I
Yeah,
mean, I don't think it's any worse, it's just, and then you
yeah,
flip it, I think my wife would say the same thing. So our
yeah.
palate is something that we, acquire from that life experience, but that the good news is you can change your palate too. I mean, so a lot of times we think, "I can't eat the greens without the cornbread, doc. I can't do that." You messing with some good greens, you gotta
Right,
have the
right.
cornbread. But but if you take the moment to change your palate a little bit, and more importantly, understand what are the ramifications of that. By the time you add your cornbread, and then well, Imma have a little potato salad and a little spaghetti, and by the time you look up, it's mainly a plate filled with a little meat
Yeah,
with barbecue sauce, so you didn't starch that up with the barbecue sauce, and
right.
everything else is, like, starchy. But who knew that a plate like that could be like 200-300 carbs, just one plate.
Yeah,
But most
yeah,
people don't know that their spaghetti is 40 to 50 carbs. Most people
yeah,
don't know that the potatoes are 30 plus carbs and the
yeah.
cornbread is 30 plus carbs. And oh no, you gotta have a little soda with it, and that's
Yeah,
gonna
well,
be
you
a
kidding me
problem.
that most people drink more carbs than they eat probably. I mean,
Pretty
you
much.
knock down 2 or 3 sweet teas, I mean, that's just what it is. So let's get into high school
Yes.
and the beginning of college. What kind of student were you? Were you a good student? Did you and what were your plans going into college in terms of what you want to do?
Yeah, I kinda, went into Lane Tech High School. It was probably, there's a Whitney Young, which was ranked number 1, and then Lane Tech was probably number 2 or 3. So I was fortunate that had the privilege of going to a top-rated school. I had done really well on the entrance exams and, and all of that good stuff. So I was a pretty good student. Interesting enough, I struggled at Lane Tech a little bit because the support the assumption is that if you come to a school like that, you can handle it, but the reality is, it was a culture shock and everything else. I
Mm.
struggled a little bit, but I did well enough to, obviously get into college and do okay. So my whole high school experience was about a little bit about running track, a little bit about playing. I was a tennis player because of how I grew
Mm.
up, probably like an average student. And that's what I would say to anybody that checks this out. Never, ever, ever, ever judge yourself by your struggles or your past because you
Yeah,
can teach anything, you can learn anything, and if you put your heart and soul to it, it's you just have to have that grit that I call it the Jimmy Butler of the Miami Heat. Have a little grit. Don't give up. Don't look at the person. Don't look at LeBron because you're not built like him. You ain't
right,
gonna ever be like
right.
LeBron, but
Yeah,
you can outwork him.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I have that mentality. So I kind of was able to get into Xavier, which again is a great school, historically black school, and almost didn't make it. And I've shared this story before because when I got there, I didn't really tell mom exactly how much it cost. I told her the price I gave her was
Mhm.
for the year, but it was actually for a semester. So I get
Ooh,
there, didn't have enough money,
yeah.
and I tell you, it came down to getting in the wrong line. The gentleman at that line said, "You got to go home." Somebody just tapped me. If they hadn't have tapped me, I may not be a doctor today. And they tapped me and said, "You know what? There's another line. You may want to go talk to her. She's nicer." Got in
Mm.
that line, made my case. She said, "You know what? We're going to give you a semester. We're going to find some money for you." They gave me a semester and I had to get like a 3.0 or whatever. I was able to accomplish that. And then this is what's amazing. Once you get your brain right, get around some successful people. I had a
Yeah,
shout out to Dobbin Bookman, a young man who is now at Harvard. He's running their business program. He was kind of a bookworm, and me hanging out with him taught me how to be a student. And from that moment, it was like 3.5, 3.7, 3.8. I never got a 4.0, but I was just kind of killing it and
yeah.
just learning how to be a good student. And so going to a historically black school was great. I did do some things like I pledged Alpha Fraternity while I was there. Had a chance to work a little bit while I was there. I worked at if I don't know if they have a Sizzler Steakhouse anywhere in
But
your
I know what it
world.
is.
You familiar
Yeah,
with it?
yeah.
I used to work there. I did a little security for them with my little whistle. I don't know what I was gonna secure.
I see you. I see you.
Right. Hammer Wilson, I was gonna
Hey.
blow him, maybe back then. And that's crazy because back then it's in a community called Girktown, which is next to the school. High crime, and I just didn't know because 'cause I'm just a
Yeah,
student out there. Another job I had, believe it or not, while I was in college was, I worked in a halfway house. So as the, kind of blue collar guys, I had to make sure they signed in and that was crazy, but that was a nice experience too. So
yeah,
Xavier, man, was just a great place to feel a sense of community. Their success was defined by your success. Sometimes you go to these big schools, man, you're just a
yeah,
number. They
yeah.
don't care. They just want to. But man, Xavier, they really wanted you to be successful, so that was really a blessing, and I was able to do well enough to qualify for medical school. And
All right. So you always knew you wanted to be a doctor? Is that always
yeah,
the plan or
I not really. I think Lane Tech. I had to shift from architectural
Mm,
mindset to doctoring, and it's primarily because I kind of was fascinated by how they can heal you, how you can get stitches and not feel pain. And I
Hmm.
really got bored with architectural
Yeah.
courses, the drafting boards. I just said, I can't sit here. I got a little bit of a, I don't have the extreme personality like you, Russ.
Oh, be glad,
I'm,
be thankful, be
yeah,
thankful.
I'm blessed, right?
Yeah.
I'm blessed.
At that
It's a
age, it's
curse.
not always cracked up to me. It's okay when you're 50. It ain't so great when you're 12.
I hear you. That's
Okay?
fair. That's fair. I understand. It'll get you in trouble, but yeah. So I was able to like, okay, I saw that I needed to do something that would allow me to interact with people. You think about the things that are out there. I just kind of landed on
Yeah.
medicine. I think there was some fear in the family that that's a little too much, but
Hmm.
once you put your mind to it, you can do it. And I just got I landed at a great school that laid a foundation. So when I got into medical school, I was able it still was it kicked my butt, but I was able to have a foundation so I could kinda handle the workload. You know, I learned how to work hard, and
Yeah.
that's the key to anything. I don't care if you're doing a YouTube channel, being a doctor, running a business and real estate and all these other things. You have to be a hard worker. There's nobody out here that's
Yeah.
successful, but a very few amount of people who just won the lottery. Success comes from hard work.
Right. So you decide you want to be a doctor. You get through medical school. Where'd you go to medical school?
Chicago Medical School. It used to be called, well, it may still be Finch University of the Health Sciences, but it's also called the Chicago Medical School. It's in the north suburbs of Chicago,
Gotcha.
close
Yeah.
to Lake Forest and places like that.
And so then you did residency at uh,
It's
where?
West Suburban and Oak Park. The irony of the residency program is that it's one of the top programs in the country,
Mm.
um, but it was blocks away from my home, where I grew up. Isn't that
Yeah.
ironic? So I knew I had a shot because most of these programs don't have diversity. Most of these programs don't have somebody that's coming back to home. You know, coming back. You know, it's like Derrick Rose. You know, coming home.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so I was able to get into that program, and it's unique in that I'm a family doctor, and the program teaches if you want to do a fellowship, you can be a family doctor doing C-sections, tying tubes after a delivery, doing a DNC if somebody's having bleeding or something, you know, where you know, scrape the uterus. So I was able to do surgery and get that extra training there, and it was a wonderful experience. But I chose family practice because I wanted to be kind of a jack of all trades, and that's particularly important in the work we're doing on YouTube, in that you can kind of know a little bit about everything.
Yeah.
And I think that really helps me feel that I can help more people that way. So yeah, that's how I got that
So,
direction.
so your focus always was family medicine. That you didn't have any. That's where you kind of started out during that direction,
Yeah, I
and
thought about gynae, but I felt like gynae made more sense. I love delivering babies, which I continue to do as a
yeah,
family doctor. The
that
problem is the
quality of
training.
life.
Man, you got it.
And you can't
Well,
be
there you go. It was a
on
quality of
call
life.
24/7, 365.
And it was the surgical mentality, man. You go into the surgical suite and they yelling at each other, and when I was doing C-sections and things, it was I would, you know, we would have I say, "Okay, let's play a nice song." It was fun, and I brought fun to the surgical suite, but I just think a lot of people, you know, almost like pledging. It's like you have to treat people bad because you got treated bad, and
Yeah,
that's just
yeah.
ridiculous to me. Yeah.
Now, at this time, you were still doing standard American diet? You were
I
still,
was,
following.
I've always been, somewhat health conscious, but I was never following a particular diet. In college, I would eat, a frozen pizza, you know, they sold
Yeah.
pizza for $1, you know, and some of that was money, some of it was money,
Yeah, yeah,
but in the medical school, I would do my version of healthy, which would be like, okay, you can go to Subway and get a Subway sandwich, it's got
right.
vegetables on it.
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah,
know much
yeah,
about the bread, and,
yeah.
I'm gonna get the chips, but they're gonna be baked,
Right,
you know?
right, right. Yes, I understand.
Seriously.
Yeah, hey, yeah,
So
I've been there,
I would kinda
been there,
finagle
done
my
that.
so I thought I was being healthy, and
Yes.
and I was blessed initially not to have any medical problems. Eventually, I started having, some stomach trouble, and I just didn't know what that was all about. I
And
just, you know,
when did those stomach troubles start?
I
What
think it
how old were you?
started in I think my recollection, it was probably in, more in medical school, maybe a little bit at the end of college, and it was one of those things where it probably started sooner, but if you ate my mother's dressing, which was delicious,
Right.
it was rich, and
Mhm.
I would have so the family's like, "Oh, you just can't handle rich food."
Right.
Whatever that means. So I would still eat those foods, but maybe cut back. But so I started having trouble with that. But what was just a little irritating started to be at least every month I would have a day of cramping, gassiness, and running to the bathroom. And it got to a point where it was so common that I thought it was normal,
Mm,
and I didn't know what to do. I ended up initially though getting probiotics, the healthy bacteria,
mhm.
and I found that when I started consuming probiotics, I would be okay. The
Hmm.
problem is if you don't consume probiotics,
Yeah.
you're not okay.
Right, 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 right,
Yeah, so I
right.
knew it was a way to make it better, but, later on, I started to experiment with different dietary patterns, but the probiotics was kinda how I started my journey.
Gotcha. Okay, so you're out of medical school, you're out of residency, you're now a family doctor, and, at where did you first hear about ketogenic life, at any level? Um
It started, with a Google search. In fact, when I was at the Keto Orlando, my talk was how I kinda transitioned from, vegetarian to a more of a carnivore diet. So it started with a Google search, and that was with Dr. Joe Furman, and he wrote the book, How to Disease Proof Your Kids. So, as I talked about in my talk, I went down the plant-based rabbit hole, like Alice in Wonderland.
when was that? Was that you were a doctor at this point? You
It
were
was it was I was already a doctor, but I was just getting ready to start, my family, and when I say doctor, more of a, doctor in training.
Mhm,
But so I was probably in my mid-20s,
mm,
and, again, when my first son showed up, probably at around 26 years of age, I was like, "I gotta have a healthy kid." You're trying to be the best parent, and as a family doctor, you take care of kids, so you say, "You gotta get this right." And so that's what kind of pushed me towards that plant-based dietary pattern. And I'll say out loud and proudly that I felt better. I felt
mhm,
better with the probiotics, but with the plant-based diet, I would feel better even if I didn't take the probiotics.
mhm.
There was just one small problem. A lot of the foods were causing gas, causing. So if
Yeah,
I eat Brussels sprouts, I always use that as an example. I would still get gas. I would still get cramping, and every once in a while, maybe I wasn't having those bathroom moments as much. I would still have those moments, and I was like, "This is still not getting the job done."
but the question I would have is because I grew up around a lot vegetarians,
Yeah,
and was lived with one for 6 years. The vegetarian is a that's a wide catch-all term. It just means you don't eat meat.
yeah.
So were you eating standard American diet without meat, or were you really a vegetarian?
I was definitely a healthier version, but not the healthiest. So in my mind, a vegetarian pizza is healthy. I
Yeah,
wasn't worried about the dough. If you go to Panera Bread, that was like the holy
right,
grail.
right,
You can do some things in a place like that. We had a vegetarian restaurant, a couple of those we would go to. One, it was called Munch. It still exists, and we would, as long as it was plant-based. I didn't know pasta was an issue. It's pasta.
right,
I said, as long as it's not, because I had the mindset that meat was harmful because I was living in that blue zones
right.
mentality. And for those who don't know, the blue zones are the places where we have the most centenarians, people who live to
Can live the
100,
longest.
and that's so and Dan Buettner, who came up with this idea, suggested that that was the key. I mean, it wasn't a suggestion, it was just kind of a plant-based is the way to go,
Yeah,
and in my presentation at the symposium, I made a case for why that is not even plant-based. All of those, blue zones, Okinawa, Japan, and,
yeah,
um, you know, Loma
all of
Linda,
'em.
California, and the rest of them, they all eat meat. And you provided clarity before I did my presentation. You said, "Well, I know folks," he said, "You said about 35%
Yeah,
of folk
bad
in
venom.
the only 35% of Seven-Day Adventists actually are
Yeah,
plant-based." So this illusion that you have to be plant-based to be healthy, I learned later was not true, and in
Probably
the
half of them, but probably half of them live in Loma Linda. You know? I mean, I'll be real with you.
well, that's fair.
Of the 35%, they probably got 30% of them right there, but
Right.
again, if you're living ketogenic
Yeah.
vegetarian, that's different. Again, I lived with a vegetarian whose diet consisted of pasta, rice, bread,
Right.
cheese, ranch
Right.
dressing, and Mountain Dew.
That's right.
Okay, that's that's vegetarian, but
That's right.
it's not that's not going to work. Okay, so you were vegetarian, and you said that you discovered ketogenic living, but you were still as a family doctor prescribing or suggesting or recommending the standard American diet. Really, I mean grains and fruits and
Yeah.
vegetables.
I
Up
was
until when?
different in that I didn't just say follow the food plate. I was pushing the, vegetarian narrative. I didn't get the kinda, you know, response that I would have liked because it's hard to that's a harder shift than a low carb shift.
Sure,
So for the patients, I was always talking to them about nutrition. Now I've taken it to a whole nother level now, and I can do it because I can say, "Watch this video I made about, low carb," and things like that. So I have things to point to, that'll help people who are making this journey. But man, I was still not understanding that process, like a veg. I was in the documentary Beyond Impossible, made by Vinnie Tortorich, and in that documentary, it just kind of reminds us that Impossible Burgers, Beyond Meat Burgers, they're all processed food. So
absolutely. Yeah,
but I didn't think about it that way. I had so much vegetarian processed food stuff,
absolutely.
and I'm
Read
not
the
saying
label.
all of it's
You gotta have a
garbage,
degree in chemistry to
just
read
to
the label. I mean,
understand.
you can how do you turn a pea into a hamburger looking thing? I
It's
mean,
rough, and
it's a lot
what
that
the
goes
heck is
into that.
leg hemoglobin anyway? That ingredient from beets that make it, look bloody. But
Yeah,
when and then you take that one ingredient and it causes, problems in mice in the
yeah,
studies, and yet they did not do anything. The FDA didn't say, "We need to do studies in humans." They just put a stamp on it. And so we can't do a human experiment on people when we have real food we can suggest, but there's no profit in unprocessed real food
oh,
compared
that's
to
right, yeah, you can't mass
processed
produce
food.
it and store it for years and warehouses and
Exactly.
ship it all over the world
That's right.
and that, so no, I totally understand that. So, okay, so you're a vegetarian, you found ketogenic living, and when did you, um both for yourself, start doing that? Because I know you
Yeah,
told me your carb number is pretty low.
it's pretty
Uh,
low,
when
but
did
it
that?
varies. It varies.
Yeah.
It was 8 to 9 years ago,
Uh-huh.
is when I started low carb, and it
Did
was
you do that before you started telling your patients to do it, or did
I
you do it at
did,
the same
but
time? Or
it was really more for my wife because she was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, so I was like, "What can you
mm,
do to help her?" And what you find is that you can't chase spikes. So
mhm,
if you eat something that's 30 carbs versus something that's 4 carbs, you're guessing, particularly for a type 1 diabetic, how much insulin do you need? And because the labels are not really accurate, and because the insulin varies and where you stick it varies and all
mhm,
these other factors, you're probably not going to get it right. So you're either going to give yourself too much or not enough. But
yeah,
it's better to make a mistake on 3 carbs than on 30. If you make
right,
a mistake on 3 carbs, it ain't gonna be a big mistake. And even if it goes down a little more than you expected, it ain't go down that much because you didn't have to take that
right,
much insulin. So it's really about so for me and her, I had to say, well, I got to do the diet with the insulin, and her need for insulin, really went down. You're going to need insulin, but you don't need as much.
right.
And so that's what kind of, and so she was the reason. And then by accident, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm feeling pretty good doing this. In fact, I don't have all that gas. And as I moved away and away from the vegetables that were causing the symptoms, I transitioned to more of a keto where it was, less than 50 or so. Then I kind of kept going further down, kind of landed at ketovore carnivore. I know your carb number is like, I've heard you say 15, right?
Yeah,
So,
between 10 and 15, but I
right.
just say
So,
15 because that's more
and I
consistent.
know these are labels, but I tend to be mostly animal based on most days of the week, and sometimes I'll, depending on what my wife made, or if it's something I know, like green beans, greens, they don't bother me.
Mhm.
Yellow squash don't bother me, at least in terms of what I feel. Now, it may be
Right,
bothering me, and I don't
right.
know. And I do like the idea, and I heard Nisha Berry, kind of fuss a little bit about this recently, and how she was like, these labels are driving her crazy too. So she's
Yeah.
very aligned with you. She's like, listen, you do what works for you. The labels are overrated, and I want a carnivore, if they have that label, to have permission to eat vegetables sometimes or fruit.
Sure,
And
and listen, and Imma tell you right now, a lot of them do.
yeah,
It may
yeah,
not be
right,
good for the clicks and
right.
all that kinda stuff,
That's
but,
right.
yeah, trust me with these folks, that they're a lot of them are doing that, and, I get it, I understand.
Yeah,
Some of us I'm out here for a little different reason than some people. But so you started 9 years ago, and in your practice as well, you started at about that time? Did I hear you
yeah. I
hear that?
started integrating it, and this is what's the gift of this, man. You It's easier to say to somebody they can still eat their ribeye. And then I'll put the list in front of them. I have a link tree. So if somebody searches link tree Dr. Tony Hampton, one of the things you'll see is a handout that's two-sided, and it tells you eat this and avoid that on the opposite side. But I'll say, look at this list of vegetables, and do you see anything on this list that you like? And most people will pick a something, and invariably, if they so first thing I'll tell them, we'll have to kind of target certain number of carbs, and you just need to do it for the short term. So you'll identify high carb foods. You don't have to do this for long because we eat the same stuff. And then I'll say, tell me your favorite vegetable, and then they'll say something like green beans. Now I immediately say 7 carbs. And what I'll say
Mhm.
to my patients is, you need to know, like, that's what I like about you. You're like, you got to know the numbers, right?
Yeah,
So, so no matter where you are, you'll know, okay, they got green beans. I can work with that because it's about 7 carbs per serving. So I asked them to find a couple of vegetables they like. I don't care if they eat green beans every other day, but
right.
find something that'll fit this model. And I guarantee, and then what I have to do is aggressively take them off their medicine. So if you take away the food that is leading to your insulin resistance, that's leading to your blood sugar being high, I say take that carb number divided by 4. That'll give you the teaspoons of sugar. And so 45 carbs for a cup of rice, brown or white, is 11 teaspoons of sugar. So once they hear that and
Yeah,
understand that, they'll say, okay, that makes sense. And then they'll start looking at the numbers and eating the foods that they already like. There's nothing wrong with diet doctor and recipes and things like that. But for most people, they need to know, eat this, avoid that,
yeah,
and let's reduce the medicine because you're not going to need it anymore if you're a
yeah,
type 2 diabetic. So it's been like a miracle, man. And I can't I asked when I was at the conference in Keto Atlanta, oh, I'm sorry, with the symposium for metabolic health, Dr. Brian Linskis uh, shared some statements that made me ask him as a question, what has it been like to be a metabolic health doc? And his answer and my answer is the same. You become a healer because
yeah,
people reverse disease. And I saw a guy who had been a diabetic on insulin for 30 years just this past week. In 30 years, nobody's ever told him he can get off medicine. In 30 years, nobody told him that he could reverse diabetes in 30 years. And I can't believe this. Never has anyone said you need to reduce carbs. How could that be true in America?
because they wanna sell insulin. There's no money in cure, there's money in treatment. I mean,
It's shocking.
that's unfortunately the case. And I want to kind of wrap it up and kind of finish it up with you switched your kind of your focus into metabolic health and that, but overall, what do you think the landscape is, or the atmosphere is for doctors like you, um, who are doing that? Do you think that it's a fertile soil and more people are doing it? Is there resistance against it? Are you constantly at war with the establishment? Just what do you think the future is, both current and maybe a little bit longer term for doctors and metabolic health.
Well, I think you know me well enough to know that I'm a lover, not a fighter, right? So I'm not gonna be
Yeah, but sometimes you got to knock somebody out, dog. In the name of love. Sometimes in
well,
the
in
name
the
of
name of
love,
love.
yeah,
Well,
you got to
y
mollywop somebody in the name of love.
so when I went to Keto Orlando, the topic was vegetarian to carnivore. What was that like? When I went to Symposium for Metabolic Health, the topic was how vegans and carnivores can live in harmony. So it is my belief that foundationally, if we allow people to individualize their dietary options with some education so they'll know what to do if they're
Uh,
vegan, what to
but
do.
that's not. I hear you, but that's not what I'm talking about.
I know, but I'm
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 talking
gonna
about
go somewhere with it.
doctors.
Yeah, but
You
listen what I'm saying.
okay? I'm sorry. Go
I'm
ahead.
gonna
Go ahead.
go somewhere with it. So
Okay.
imagine this. So my life purpose, man, is to help spread the message of metabolic health, right? And in order for me to do that, I realized that I also have to deal with health inequity, the social determinants of health. Why do people of color struggle? Why do so what I want to do in my health system is focus on health equity, focus on teaching people that there is a way to achieve your goals, but you have to deal with the barriers to achieving your goals first. So if there's economic inequities, educational inequities, if there's food desert inequities, we have to address that first before we can help people with keto, low carb, or carnivore. Now, having said that, so I do have faith. I'm gonna tell you why, because my health system is they're focused on some of these areas since we've been merging with other health systems like Atrium in the South. And the fact that they're focusing on these issues tells me that there's hope. The key is that you have to have doctors who understand not just the fact that I need to that unconscious bias, right? That we all have. We're all prejudiced. We just it's based on our lived experiences, right? So if I have a lived experience that says that if I see a white guy with a bald head, I'm going to think he's a skinhead. So in my brain, I'm thinking he's dangerous. He's going to I see him on a motorcycle, not realizing that most motorcycle groups are families. I mean, but if you don't know that, you're going to stereotype. So for me, it's about helping to connect the dots between wellness with metabolic health, social determinants of health, and then teaching our colleagues. Is it going to take a long time? 100%. But in order to move the needle, you have to have people who are clinicians like myself who can then talk to their colleagues about if you did you realize you can reverse that diabetes if you did this and if you stop following the dietary guidelines. And I think that those are the things I believe will happen. It's just going to take a while. And keep in mind, Russ, that the American Heart Association, the American Diabetes Association, and the Society of Clinical Endocrinology, and the Pentagon and some of these places are now saying low carb is okay. We've made a tremendous amount of progress. It's just not known. So if you go see the average doctor today, they will know nothing of any of this for the most part. They will still tell you to eat all the grains and lean meat and all of
Mm.
that because the standard of care hasn't changed yet. But at least it's an option now. We just have to give people permission to see that it's not just an option, it's probably the best option for most people.
Okay, well, and listen, I put you on the spot a little bit. I can't expect you to shoot inside the tent. I can't I can't expect you to do that. So shame on me for for that. But there are many, not you, of course, not you, but there are many who look, who feel like the medical establishment is part of the problem in many cases
Yeah,
and not part of the solution.
yeah,
But thank goodness we have doctors like you, Dr. Barry, other doctors that we can look to tell us the right things, show us the right things, and we need you guys desperately
yeah,
to fight the medical establishment because we
yeah,
as patients, we don't have the respect of the doctors and that, but the scientists, the doctors,
yeah,
you can go toe to toe with those folks and tell them, hey, listen, there's a different way and a better way, and hopefully get somewhere because you're a peer,
yeah.
and you're respected in a different way. So I just want to wrap up with anything you want folks to know about. Of course, tell people where they can find you, what you got going on,
Yeah.
and then we'll wrap this thing up.
Yeah, for me, man, it's I created the link tree just to give people a quick place to go to. So if they just search Dr. Tony Hampton link tree, or we'll have a link for them, they'll be able to see a link to things like Joan Iflin's processed food addiction. You can do a quiz, and if you qualify and you are processed food addicted, you can do that. I did a great video on carnivore, how to get started with the black carnivore, and she's A-Day Fox, and she's that's there. How to do low carb. You know, it's just a resource. What's the best diet for hypertension? All that stuff's linked there. So I think that's the best thing. And for me, what I'm trying to do is this work right here. I want to get out in front of people, let them know that we exist, and that there's another way, and they do not have to live with chronic illnesses, because they're really not chronic illnesses. They're only chronic illnesses if you continue to consume the standard American diet. Within my health system, I'm already a leader, and I want to continue to extend my leadership roles, because every doctor that's in a low carb, keto, carnivore space can't just be an individual practitioner and
Mhm.
only on YouTube. We need a few of us that are in large health systems that can then impact other health systems. We just got to do what Verta Health did. And what Verta Health did, they did the research first, and which was low carb, and they showed that it works. And now they're out there trying to connect with larger industries and health systems to help them get this word across. So it's going to be a grassroots effort, but I just think everybody can do their small part. You're doing your part by sharing your message. People who are benefiting from this can just tell their family they're benefiting without being too preachy. And I think if we all do our part, I think we'll walk towards a world, because you can't hide science forever. You can't hide the anecdotal results forever. People
Yeah.
will eventually find the truth, and it doesn't mean they have to be low carb, keto, or carnivore. But if you're vegan, you need to know how to supplement. You need to know, what should I be taking? What should I be measuring? So I know I'm not anemic, that my magnesium's okay, my zinc's okay, or whatever. And I think that's
Yeah.
so that's why you want to individualize it. But people need to not fear meat, saturated fat, and all of that stuff. That's a waste of energy. That's been debunked. The China study's been debunked, and we can
Yeah.
move on. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Well, I want to thank Dr. Tony Hampton for coming by. As always, on my channel, he's at the top. He's on my Mount Rushmore. He's one of the doctors that I follow. And when you go to my channel, up at the top, you'll see right before my videos, the featured channels. He's one of them there. So you can check him out, see what he's got going on. He'll be on the cookout with us as well from time to time, and doing different things. And he speaks all over the place, so you can find him there as well. And folks, I want to thank you for watching this edition of Keto Conversations, where we bring you folks. We're more than what we eat. We're more than our sicknesses and our illnesses and our medical histories. And I want to bring you real stories with real people. Of course, we talk about ketogenic living, but also talk about our lives and who we are. So I hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned for the next episode of Keto Conversations that'll be coming up soon. As always, we wish you all the best, and we'll see you on the next one.